Welcome to another of our Clèir Eilean Ì Getting to Know Folk Around the Presbytery. And our guest today is Deacon Dot Getliffe. Welcome to you, Dot. How are you today?
Thanks. I'm very well indeed on this Friday morning.
Excellent. And what's keeping you busy these days?
Oh, that's a good question. I work part-time with St. Columba Church of Scotland in Inverness. We don't have a building, we meet in a school. I work with the Rev Roberts, who is a church planter. So I have been employed since the beginning of July, my last hurrah of a deacon post because of age. So it's partly pastoral work and it's part missional work. And I take services both within St. Columba, but also over in Boleskine, which is a rural extension of our parish and currently in vacancy. So we have knitted them up and put them into the jumper that is St. Columba.
Fantastic. So it sounds as if you're being kept very busy. Now, there might be some folk who are listening to this and are not quite sure what a deacon is. So tell us a wee bit about the diaconate.
Okay. Well, Donald, it's one of these things. Deacons are actually in the Anglican Church, in the Roman Catholic Church, they're in the Methodist Church, and in the Episcopal Church, but they're all slightly different. I prefer to call myself a diaconate minister of word and service. Mm-hmm. What we do as opposed to a minister of word and sacrament is we work very much as a bridge in the community. I like to think of ourselves as roving reporters for the parish minister, who's more like the anchor man. We go out to the community in missional work. We work with third sector organisations that work with disabled people or any of the pastoral needs of which there are many. We use our gifts and talents, and there's a big variety of service. Some deacons work with children mainly. I work in a pastoral capacity as well as missional. Some deacons work as chaplains in residential care. Perhaps they work in a hospital as a chaplain. We have varied gifts. One of the things that sets us aside, I think, is that we keep in contact with other members of the order, if you want to call it that, by supporting one another, giving and receiving fellowship, visits, letters or telephone. So we have a wonderful network across the Church of Scotland, and we meet twice a year. We are complementary to ministers of word and sacrament. There aren't that many deacons' jobs going because a few years ago, Church of Scotland decided to have the, if you like, the order of MDS, which is Mission Development Staff, which includes deacons. But we have jumped all the hoops and have had to do the BD, the same as ministers of word and sacrament. And I think a lot of people don't realise that we're not, we're not just under ministers. A lot of people say to me, did you not go on to become a minister of word and sacrament after I've taken a service? And I say, but this is my calling. I'm a permanent deacon. I'm not going on to anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. That it's a different ministry, a complementary ministry, and the church certainly values the input from the diaconate. And it's now you're the only deacon within Clèir Eilean Ì, is that right?
That's correct. There's one or two retired people.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We have someone called Glenda down in Doon. We have Joyce, who's retired and lives in Far near Inverness. A few deacons in training, but only a few. It's very difficult to recruit these days.
Mm-hmm. As it is for all forms of ministry. Tell me something of your first impressions of our new presbytery, Clèir Eilean Ì, covering 42% of Scotland. What are some of your hopes and dreams for the presbytery?
Well, I absolutely love the new presbytery. I feel there's an awful lot of effort, hard graft gone in connecting us all together because we are so far apart. And one of the great things, which a gift that God has given me, is in connecting and building networks. So I am delighted to be part of something bigger, and I've got something distinctive to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that there's a lot of folks around Clèir Eilean Ì, it's very difficult to say, who are doing different kinds of ministry, and I'm really intrigued to find out what everybody is doing. One of the things I do on a wider scale, I'm private funded, Donald, because there aren't posts. And one of the things I do is I've been doing prayer and mission workshops over in this. I was asked to come, and I use the word workshop because I'm very much a practical theologian. Mm-hmm. So we've been looking at the Word of God. One of the things I like to do, because I think a lot of folks in congregations are well versed in the scriptures, but maybe they've not, as members of a congregation, had the opportunity to join a smaller group to discuss the scriptures together. One of the things I do is I share the very basic stories, if you like. For example, Mary and Martha. Mm-hmm. I get someone to read the passage, and then I say, I want you now in your group to recreate what was all that about and get them to put it in their own words. I love opening the scriptures in different ways. I often do Lectio Divina, which some of you might know is a sharing of the Word of God and listening with the heart. Because I think getting the sermon out there to people and applying it to their lives is actually very, very central and core to the Christian life of discipleship.
Absolutely, yes. I heard someone saying that, in sermon preparation, we all have to be thinking, what can I say to my people on Sunday that will still matter on Tuesday? I like that.
Well, tell them to take notes, Donald.
Tell us what a typical day. Now I know every day is going to be different, but tell us. Some of the things that you'll be up to in the coming week.
Okay, before I do that, just back to the diaconate question. There have been women in the diaconate since the end of the 19th century in Scotland. That was before women were allowed to be ordained for ministry of word and sacrament. So the only thing women could do was visit the sick, or they were allowed to work with the children. So that's a wee bit of the history. You can read more in a book if you email me. I'll tell you what the book is. A typical day. Well, I have to say this, and it's not. I pray. It's not a boastful thing. We have to start the day where possible with our devotions. So I use an app, Pray As You Go, because it includes Lectio Divina and a lot of good, challenging thoughts. And then a time of prayer. Quite often I have a list as long as the arm. I'm sure you do as well, and all our listeners do. But sometimes Jesus says, like he said to Mary, he says, don't bring all these other people to me. Bring yourself today. Bring yourself. What is it that you want me to do in and through you today? And quite often that involves the people I've prayed for. I might pop over and visit them or give them a text. One of the things I'm working on just now is a very low-key Bible study for ladies on the fringes of our congregation. I work with a lovely woman called Donna. We're collaborators. We work with other people all the time. So Donna and I are working on this is ladies on the fringes, people that are unable to come to the services on a Saturday due to mental health or physical health or just the pace of life. So we're going to be looking at God's outrageous love for us and that we are God's good idea. I like things that relate to people. I'm not into any kind of jargonese of things like justification, etc. I like to unpack these things so that I'm sure that folks who might come into the church who are not familiar with our culture can engage very easily. And I think that's not an easy thing to do.
Absolutely.
So that would be that.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Other things I would be doing, as I say, preparing Bible study, making contact with people. Today, for example, I am going up to Dingwall to collect some journaling books. They're absolutely free. We've always got to think of the cost, haven't we, in the Church of Scotland? So I'm going to collect 10 journals from HTSI, Highland Third Sector Interface. These are free, and I'm going to be using them for this ladies' course that we're going to begin in September. Is that enough?
Absolutely, yeah, more than enough, and obviously keeping you very, very busy. You mentioned the importance of connection, and it's great that in some ways I actually feel more connected with colleagues around the large presbytery. When we're able to use technology like this. It was unfortunate that we weren't able to establish a video connection online this morning, but we're able to bring this audio, and of course it'll be on the podcast. And I'm sure as many of us are driving around large areas, always good to be able to listen to a podcast and catch up with some of the good news stories from around the presbytery. Are you going to be able to make it to the September conference in Fort William?
Yes, of course I am. I wouldn't miss it for the world, Donald.
What are you particularly looking forward to for that?
Well, it's the meeting face to face. When you're doing a lot of your work online, it's important that you put a name to a face. And also, I think deacons, we like to, in a very quiet way sometimes, though I'm an extrovert, is to educate folks again on what the diaconate's all about. We have male deacons now as well, which is wonderful. Most of us work in the Central Belt, but it's a real privilege to be the only deacon in the village. I mean, the only deacon in CEI. I am looking forward also to I think there's a seminar by the Reverend David Scott on how we can agree to disagree on different theological issues. I'm looking forward to that. I'm part of the Presbytery Committee, whose convener is Janet McKellar. I'm on the Ministry and Mission group there, and I think I have quite a lot to contribute there. But it's learning as well the resources that are available to us.
Yeah.
I don't think we share enough on a ministry level, if you like, of what we've used, what has worked, and encouraging other people to think out of the box. I think that's one of my gifts, actually.
Brilliant, yeah. And in fact, on that'll be next week, the 21st of August, there'll be another of our informal Zoom gatherings, which are really to encourage folk to get together, meet one another, put a few names and faces together, and to share some good news stories, some good practice, some good ideas. So that's on Zoom, 7:00 on the 21st of August.
But I have a theory, Donald, if you don't mind me interrupting. I have a theory that if we as Christians can't connect to one another on a spiritual level on a Sunday or at a presbytery meeting, then how on earth are we going to connect with people outside the church? We're there for the majority who don't come.
Absolutely, yeah. The church is the only organisation that exists primarily for those who are not members.
What a good quote. What a good quote.
I'm trying to remember where it comes from. I think it was one of the long ago archbishops of Canterbury.
Without walls, I think.
Well,
now we're showing our age.
Well, absolutely, yeah. I think I've mentioned in one of these earlier getting to know folk things. I frequently revisit a thought from Peter Nielsen around Church Without Walls. What kind of church are we leaving to the next generation? And these are challenging times for the church, but there's so much excitement and possibility that we need to be bold and brave and share. Yeah.
Sorry, that's me. But can I give you a good example of that?
Yeah.
Every year there's the annual Baxter's race in September. Baxter's being, the soup people that are in Fochabers, and it's usually fun runs and more serious runs. And what we've done in the last couple of years as a church is we've set up a gazebo, we have T-shirts, tell me your story, and we have a kind of rota, if you like, a relay. That was a joke to do with the race. Anyway, we have a relay, and there's always tons and tons of people, loads of people. And so we chat to anyone that wants to chat about their reasons for running. And it's quite sobering to hear folks running for a sister who's got breast cancer, or a brother who lost his leg in the army, all that kind of thing. And then those that are keen, we can take aside privately and pray with them and for them. And last year, the organisers were really grateful for what we were doing. So we can join in with what God is doing already. And that's part of what Scott McRoberts and myself, as Minister of Word and Sacrament and Deacon, that's what we do. And we bring along volunteers who are willing to sort of man the tent as well.
Fantastic. Yeah. And yeah, it's about sharing those good ideas, and maybe somebody listening to this is thinking, goodness, there's something that we could do at whatever, different events happening in their community.
Yeah, I've also got something that I got from someone in Fife, Peterwood, and it's 10 kind of ideas of how to get into housing developments, new housing developments, because we've got 3 of them within our parish, and it's very just thinking, how on earth, Lord, do we find gatekeepers, people who will open up these housing developments for us? So again, anyone can get in touch with me if they want to hear some of these ideas.
And tell us, what would be the best way to get in touch with you, Dot?
The best way to get in touch with me is my email, dgetliffe@churchofscotland.org.uk. Getliffe is spelt Get Life, which is a good name for a Christian. Get Life with an extra S.
Brilliant. Now, a question that I've asked a lot of our guests on these video podcasts, if you could invite anyone along to a CEI meeting, either someone still living or someone from the past, who would you like to invite to a CEI gathering, either to speak to presbytery or to be there and to be listening to what we're up to? Who would you invite along to a presbytery gathering, anyone at all?
Well, that's a good question. I think I would invite Helen Mirren. I used to be a teacher of speech and drama before I became a deacon. I've only been a deacon 20 years, but I'm still very interested in the theatre and stage world, and go down once a year anyway to see a show. And Helen Mirren is someone who I've always been intrigued by. She doesn't have a faith as such, but she said when she was playing the part of the Queen, she obviously had Queen Elizabeth II, our late Queen. She had to do a lot of research, and I'm sure within that she found that faith, that the Queen Elizabeth's faith was integral to her being. And I would like to invite Helen to just come and listen to our stories of faith and how we came to faith. The other person I'd like to invite is Susan Kalman, who goes round Britain and does all sorts of lovely things, getting paid for it, which is the kind of job I would love to do. But she has a motorhome called Helen Mirren, so there's a wee connection there as well.
Brilliant. Dot, it's been lovely to chat with you, and I look forward to editing our wee conversation and sharing that on the Presbytery podcast. And although we're not seeing you on video, we'll get it on YouTube as well. Great to be able to use all these different technologies to share, to connect, to be the presbytery, to be the Church of Jesus in this area. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Donald. It's been a blast.
Thank you.